I see you've returned to the Halloween Splatterthon, and just in time for an exclusive interview with Akron Horror Hounds.
Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to a little something different on the channel here. Yes, we're going to be doing an interview with Alina from the Akron Horror Hounds. This was pretty cool to set up. We had met at a punk rock flea market here in Akron just a couple months back where we kind of got to discuss some things and just our love for horror and all that. And then I just kind of reached out to them, kind of putting this video together. As you can see from the title, we're not only interviewing her, but we're going to be discussing what are those Halloween essentials. And that can be anything from movies to, books, events, things that just remind you of the kind of spooky season that we're in. We're in the midst of the Splatterthon right now. And I'm just trying to make sure that everybody who watches this and hops in just understands that we are in spooky season. And I want everybody to know and feel that classic Halloween feeling that I love so much. Like I literally live 365 days a year for this 1 month, it feels like, because I fucking love it.
Man, I hate spooky season. I can't stand horror movies. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it's in full effect. We've talked about it on Sunday Scaries, and we're officially in October here. The season of fall is in the air, no doubt. So this was very exciting. When you had brought this up, it's one thing to kind of get on here and discuss horror with you and the discourse online. But when you mentioned Akron Horror Hounds and to kind of look at it, there's such a camaraderie about meeting in person and kind of having those close-knit relationships like that this is something very intriguing. I hope this kind of really does grow in our area and then a lot of other areas to kind of keep the horror element alive. It's like the Midnight Society in Are You Afraid of the Dark? All this little horror clubs. I think that's so fun with the horror communities where you meet so many different people and find things that you all like and can enjoy.
Absolutely. So I guess without further ado, here is our interview with Alina. Alrighty, guys. So we are here with Alina from the Akron Horror Hounds. Alina, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
How's it going? Awesome. So yeah, this was pretty cool. Like I gotta say, basically, like we were just talking before we hit record about how I kind of ran into you. We were doing like a punk rock flea market thing here in Akron, something where like one of my buddies' bands was playing at it. So I went to support, and that's where I kind of found out about you guys. I saw you guys posting stuff like a few days before on Facebook and everything. And that's when I kind of got stumbled into this whole thing. And it's like, I've grown up in this city my whole life. Luke is also from Akron here too. So it's just like really cool to find a community that's starting to grow that's all horror centric. So, I mean, like, where did you kind of get this idea and when did this all start for you?
Well, Akron Horror Hounds is still fairly new. We're only about a year old. So far, it's mostly me. Like, it's a one-stop shop of me, but there are a few other people who will help organize and host events, mostly the haunted houses. That I, too, liked horror movies, and I didn't really have anyone to go watch them with. Famously, I've said this story before, is that my husband doesn't like horror movies. And so anytime I would propose something for a movie night, he'd shoot it down. And then if I wanted to go, like, hey, I really want to go see, the new It Chapter 1 in theaters, he'd be like, oh, I don't want to go see that. I'm like, man, I just wish, really wish I had someone to go to the movie theaters with or watch these movies with. And horror movies have always been and really became in the past few years like the dirty little secret or the guilty pleasure that no one else I knew liked. I had no one to talk about it with. Not even the podcasters I've been following for a decade really cared about horror movies. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just make a club. I can't be the only person who feels this way. And so just started from this desire to have people to watch movies with. And it's really blossomed in the past year. This is our second Halloween together as a club. And we celebrated that last night by watching Halloween 2 and our
Awesome.
virtual watch parties. We do virtual watch parties almost every single Sunday. And it's on the app called castapp.co with a K. And we also schedule going out to the theaters together, going to haunted houses together, a whole bunch of stuff that whenever something really cool pops up, I'll be like, hey guys, who wants to go? We're going to go see Legend of the Sleepy Hollow live in Akron on Sunday, and Evil Dead the Musical at Akron Civic Theater in a couple weeks here in Akron as well as a group. So it's all about sharing events for anyone who wants to. I also hope to be a facilitator and a hub of news of things that are going on in Akron. Just like people who here in Akron have podcasts like you guys. Scary Movie Club was another one who did horror movie reviews and podcasts, and then sharing local vendor shops and events and vendor events like the Punk Rock Flea Market. So that's really how it started and where it is currently.
That's awesome. Yeah. So like I enjoy the aspect of actually somebody going out there and kind of making that hub, like you were saying, because it's almost like there's all these little subsections that you just can't really see until you're into it. Like I worked at a used media store. We have a bigger chain around here called The Exchange. I worked there for about 4 years. So like the horror community was always coming in there looking for, kind of horror films that were like off the beaten path and stuff like that. Luke was also worked at a used media store for a while, not The Exchange, but another one that we worked at prior. So it's like he can kind of chime in on this too, where it's just like the horror community was always kind of blossoming in those used videos, like sections. So it's like when I kind of got out of that field of work, it was just one of those things where I'm like, well, I know that I'm not going to have as many great conversations as I would. The only person I could really think of is Luke over here, because like we've been friends for a while and we always talk horror movies. We write horror movies, like that's our thing. So, it's awesome that you're kind of developing this kind of like space for anybody who's like local. And I imagine people who aren't even local would be, invited as well to come on and kind of just like get involved, because it's just one of those things where it's like this community is kind of a beautiful thing once you start to kind of open yourself up to it. I think that's something we've both kind of learned as we started our channel here a few months back.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting kind of dynamic, I guess. I don't know how you went about it, but like for me, had like Dylan said, where we both worked at a used media store, and that's where I met Dylan initially. So it was kind of like going through life, you would meet maybe a few people that liked horror, and it was like when I met Dylan and we're dealing with media every day, the basics, you have action, all this other stuff, romance, everything. But then like when I think maybe one of the big things I remember is Dylan and me, a copy of Christine came in, John Carpenter's Christine. And it was like, I know Dylan had an eye for it, and I had been waiting for that to come in. So I wanted to actually buy it. And it was like that kind of bond almost formed over that film, just because it was like, oh, wait, you like horror movies too? And it was like when you'd have people come in selling it, I specifically remember like Halloween 2 and Halloween 3, those Scream Factory copies. And it's like when someone comes in with that type of stuff and you're like, hold on a minute, now I can have this actual unique conversation with people where you don't really get, in everyday life. So I don't know. It's dealing with that type of stuff is almost finding like a hidden treasure in life, and I think that's what really kind of makes the horror community is like, once you find someone that likes horror, you're instant friends. You have an instant foundation. And I don't think you get that with any other movie genre except horror.
Yeah, I think it really builds into just like you almost have this comfortability as things kind of move on and stuff like that. And again, that's why I like praise your efforts and everything for Akron Horror Hounds here, because I think that this is really cool, just kind of being able to find this pocket that's, like I said, in our own backyard. So it's like, that's kind of why I wanted to kind of bring you on and spotlight it because it's just like, I think this is super cool. Another question I kind of had for you was, where did your love for horror kind of start? Like what was like the piece of media, movie, book, video game, whatever it was that kind of kicked that all off for you? And how old were you?
That's everyone's question, right? Every horror
Absolutely.
fan, anyone you're like, wait, you've seen that movie? Wait, you know who the third Jason was played by? Yeah. Then it's always like, well, what was your introduction? That my parents, with their questionable parenting choices, just weren't afraid to show me things. Like, we didn't have some of my earliest memories, we didn't have cable, and so it'd just be go to the Blockbuster, rent a movie, and if I happened to be around as a rugrat running around the living room, then so be it. So I think the first movie that scared the bejesus out of me was Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger, and I remember like being at my grandma's house, being like 5 years old, and like peeking out of over the screen door, like into the woods. I'm like, Freddy's coming to get us, and my grandma saw this and actually went on PBS and like video recorded off of PBS the special of Robert Englund getting made up, and she's like, see, it's all just make believe. And then I only realized it in the past couple of years. Creepshow 2,
Oh, awesome.
with the raft, or like in the lake. It was one of those like weird core memory connections where I'm like, wait, that's what that was, where I've had this fear of like the black water sucking me in and like into the lake forever. And I'm like, that's what it was. It was Creepshow 2. So those were some of the first things, but I also remember going on the Haunted Mansion ride in Disneyland, in Disney World, when I was like 3 or 4 or something, and being both scared and thrilled and happy by that. And I really do think that was a lot of it, because you can be scared and happy at the same time. And just realizing that even, as a kid, that really started maybe scary movies aren't that bad.
No, that's great. Cause like you bring up the Blockbuster thing. What's funny, kind of connecting this, and Luke, I'm sure we talked about this years ago, but the used media store that we worked at actually popped up in the basically skeletal remains of my old Blockbuster when they started closing things down. We only lived just up the street from it. So I remember walking around Blockbuster, and the movie that always terrified me, and I had only seen a little bit of it, was the 1990s It movie with Tim Curry's Pennywise. So seeing him on the cover when that was displayed, I would literally hide behind my dad or hide behind shelves, just like, I don't want to see that clown. That thing is horrifying. And like, that was kind of where, I would say maybe I was probably like 5 or 6 years old when that really terrified me. Like, I walked out in the living room and they were just watching it. And it was when he was coming up out of the drain, I think, to talk to Eddie, when he's just like kind of just opening the ground and all that. And it was just like, I don't know what it was. It just terrified me. And we recently discussed this on our channel, where Leprechaun was another big one for me that absolutely terrified me. But my really like root where I think everything started for me was actually, I wasn't afraid of this at all, but I still think it's my favorite movie of all time, just in general, is Jaws. So like as a kid, I would watch Jaws constantly. And it's like, I don't know, some people don't consider that a pure horror film. Like, I can kind of get behind whether it is or isn't, but it is one of those things where it's like, it just built that tension so well. And I was just so interested in this like Leviathan shark that's just like ripping people apart and everything. And I just really got enamored with it. And I think that's what really spawned up my love for creature features, because that's kind of my bread and butter on here, is I like to tease Luke with. I keep telling him we're going to watch all these awful sci-fi creature feature films, but I've been good to him so far, I would say.
You've been
What do you
decent
think,
at best, Dylan.
But yeah, I think like, when, we get into something like Akron Horror Hounds and you're kind of making this kind of like hub, as you said, I think that that's important, and that's really great to see. Like, when we first started this up, we kind of got on Twitter was our only force of social media for a little while there. Like, we started up with Instagram recently and TikTok and stuff, just to get our name out there a little bit more. But like, it was kind of quick to realize, once we kind of figured out how Twitter works and everything, and we started to build a small following, just how supportive and everybody, like everything everybody is. And again, it feels kind of like what Luke was saying, where it's like you kind of find somebody who's in this club that, you know, it's like they know what they're talking about. Like my eyes lit up when you brought up Creep Show too, because I feel like, again, Luke is the only person I can talk to about like Creep Show too, and he has anything to know what I'm saying. So it's just kind of like, that's what I find really special about this. And so it's like, with that, you said you were kind of wanting to more pivot towards getting things more towards like news that's like local around with events and things like that. And I think you're doing a great job with that, because I follow the page. But like, I guess, what are your kind of views for the future for Horror Hounds? Like, I know you're doing virtual screenings and things like that. Is there any like inkling to maybe try to bring some of those groups together in person, where it's like you're putting on a full blown screening? Because I know the Nightlight does one in the graveyard, I think, around Halloween every year. They do one down in Akron over there. Is that like in the future at all for you guys, you think?
Definitely, I would love to do something like that. Right now it's trying to get people together to go to events and just be stay on top of the current events and the current news, things like that. Like with the, trying to have my eyes on all the things that are going on in and around Akron so that we can all go together. I would love to throw my own events, but right now we're still growing, so I don't want to overextend myself. Movie licensing fees are a real thing. That over the summer I was working with a venue, and movie licensing fees and copyright infringement strike downs came up, and so it's a delicate dance. And as we grow, I would love to get to a place where I could throw an event and it'd be free, so that I could raise funds in other ways or in fun ways, where then I could pay for a movie licensing fee for something really spectacular like that. That's a boring answer about money and business stuff, but yes, I would love to throw. I've had what are the 3-year, 5-year goals? That's one of the things my husband's like, well, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. Leave me alone. This is a hobby that is to, throw movies or show movies and have events like that. And especially outdoor but also maybe throw vendor markets and have just a gathering of a whole bunch of things. So, anyone with a local podcast could have a booth. And I've made some really cool friends who make haunted soaps or horror t-shirts. But I've also been really grateful to meet some people who are doing just that, doing these cool vendor markets. So shout out to, Punk Rock Flea Market, Ohio, We Are the Weirdos, Ohio, and Crafty Sirens, who are throwing together events such as that, like with the interesting vendors. The punk rock flea markets that we met at had a lot of like spooky and macabre and horror and collectibles and comics and just anything that nerds and horror nerds alike could get behind.
Yeah, and I genuinely was teasing Luke there for like probably a few days after about how just cool that was to have all these vendors and everybody who's coming from like all these different corners of this, like, of our state, and some of them I think even out of state. Like a couple of them came from like PA and stuff. So it's like, that's just really awesome, and it really opened my eyes too to this whole thing of just like, so like, if we were to do something like this in the future, we could genuinely just get a booth and like sit down and let people know and like get our name out there a little bit more. So I was really taken aback by that. And it's just, again, what I think kind of really sparked my interest in your group of just like, this is like a real tangible thing. Like, this isn't just us getting online and kind of doing our thing here that we're doing, where it's like, you can, sometimes people comment on your stuff, especially when you're as small as us. And like, sometimes, you'll have like quick little conversations, but it's not like, I get to actually tangibly meet some of these people in person. And I think that's super awesome. So like, I just, again, thank you for coming on for that portion of it. But I kind of want to move into, again, what this video we were kind of tooling around with doing. We were going to possibly release this as one of our first pieces of content for Splatterthon, which is what we're celebrating right now on the channel. It's just our first big Halloween special. We're way overextending ourselves with content. Like Luke and I are driving ourselves crazy. Like this weekend is going to be nuts. Like we have to go see Terrifier 2 up in, what is that, Orange Village?
It's Beechwood.
Beechwood.
Technically, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah, so we have to go up there, and then we're coming back reviewing that, and then we are going right into going upstairs and watching the new Hellraiser on Hulu and reviewing that. So it's going to be a long weekend for us on top of all the other content we're releasing. But this was something I wanted to kind of get out there, and if I could get somebody, and my first person I thought of was you, which thank you for responding and getting involved with this, is just like somebody to spotlight on this and just talk about, we're in the Halloween season now, we're in spooky season. What are some of these like Halloween essentials that you feel are you can't go a year without watching, reading, playing, whatever it is, even activities, like whether it's a local place or a place that like I know one of my friends who lives down in Florida, he goes to, I think it's Florida. Is he still there? All right, anyway, he goes to the Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios. So it's one of those things where it's like he's going to go do all of that and everything every single year. So it's like, I guess I posed the question to the three of you. What are some movies, like, I guess first off, we'll go with that you absolutely deem essential for the Halloween season? And Alina, we'll start with you. Alina.
Small shout out, if you have time next Thursday, we're going to go see Halloween Ends in theater in Macedonia.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like you are far too busy, but if you're already going to go see it on opening night, you can come with us. So I think my answer is a little weird. I know it seems like a lot of the people in my horror circle have a calendar that they check off every single year. One of our members last night said he'd seen Halloween 2 54 times.
Holy crap.
I usually go with whatever I'm in the mood to see. And so it's usually not a set annual thing, but my annual movie binge every October is the Saw franchise.
Okay, very
it's
cool.
It's not even that Halloween-y, but I think it's because they came out every year on Halloween, like clockwork. Mm-hmm. And it was something you could look forward to every fall. And I just love them. They're the exact, I was listening to some of your episodes earlier today, and in the very first episode, you talk about Crawl and how it's like a fun, just a fun make your heart beat moment movie, and that's what I feel about is the kind of movies I like watching, kind of like mid-tier budget. Work went into it. It's not meant to be terrible, but it's also not going to be one of the greatest horror movies we've ever seen. And most of the Saw franchise is that of just like, I just want to see people's arms getting ripped off for 90 minutes.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, we were just talking about that a couple weeks ago on, I think over a month ago now, when they just announced the next Saw film that's coming out. So Saw 10 is going to be hitting back, and they're going to try to get back into the swing of things with that Halloween time release, which is going to be pretty awesome. Because I think we ended up seeing Jigsaw, didn't we, Luke?
Yeah,
together?
We saw that in theaters. Yep.
Yeah, that was the first one I ever saw in theaters. So it's like, I kind of wish I could go back and see some of the ones. Like, I'd really love to see the first one in theaters, because I actually genuinely really like that. And they don't really hit for me as near and dear. I think the ones for me that I could say I think are really special to me every year to watch, like obviously being Halloween, John Carpenter's. I think that original film just captures that essence, and we talk about it on here, where it's like we live in a kind of a special place with Ohio, I feel like, because when fall hits for us, it feels like every small town Halloween style horror film. You feel like you could be walking on those streets, and I think that's like some of the best parts, and I think that's why it's like so like entrenched in my DNA to like put that movie on every single year. And I just get so obsessed with it, all the lighting, the coloring, and just like the shot compositions with Michael. I think about him coming out of the darkness behind Laurie, like just the mask and the silhouette. It's just like, it gives me the creeps, like, especially like, because where I live now is like that very like residential, like houses all lined up on the streets and everything. And it just feels like Halloween with all the leaves and everything. And Luke, what about you, man?
Oh man, well, one of my major picks obviously is going to be Trick or Treat. That's a go-to easily. Ever since seeing that one back when it first came out on DVD, I think because it didn't have the theatrical release. So, and just watching that one, that again, it takes place in a fictional town in Ohio, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like you automatically relate to it, and that's like one of the things where Dylan's saying where we have that season where once fall hits, it legitimately feels like fall. The air gets cold. You go out and you take a deep breath. You see the leaves changing, and I think that film encapsulates Ohio's fall. That kind of horror element to it. So it's like mandatory viewing, and just those. I love the anthology kind of feeling of those stories where they all intertwine later. So it's just one of those things that's so entertaining. Obviously, the design of Sam, and you really did create a horror icon there. So it's like I can't get enough of buying all these different little merchandise of him. Um, so it's like that is one that I have to watch every year. It gives you a little tidbit of every little kind of, I guess, horror subgenre all rolled into one, where it's like you just have to watch it.
Yeah, and I think like that's a perfect example. And again, like I love the kind of relating it to your Halloween experience, like you said with Saw coming out every Halloween. Like I feel like next year when we don't have a new Halloween movie coming into theaters, like with this being Halloween Ends and all that, I'm gonna have a little bit of withdrawal. Now, I'm not saying that these new ones are perfect. We have a show coming up discussing our thoughts and feelings on the new trilogy, but it's just one of those things where it's like I still get so excited whenever one of these big tentpole franchises is coming out around this time of year. And I think it just really just sets in for me just how awesome and special that feeling is. Cause it's kind of like I feel like as time's going on, I'm not getting that as much with a lot of the other releases. Like I feel like horror is the kind of franchise, like not franchise, but genre that kind of sits with me like that and can get me excited and can make that feeling of like that nervous excitement kind of bubble up to the surface. And it's just like I absolutely adore that stuff. Are there any others that you like can think of that you were kind of like any other like attractions, anything that you kind of go to each year?
I don't think so
Mm.
because my Halloween routine, I make decorations, I choose a theme, and then I go all out over my whole house.
Hmm.
I have 3 full-size skeletons in the basement that I pull out and usually put on the front porch and scare the UPS guy. And then I also pick out Halloween costumes for my husband and I make them and I little to my own horn is that we win sometimes. We've
Hmm.
won some Halloween costume contests in the past. And so then watching movies is just 1/3 of my Halloween routine
Oh
when
yeah.
I can.
Yeah, see, like a big thing for me would be since my wife and I purchased our own home and everything, like has been Halloween parties. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to do one this year. Just finances, and we just had a newborn couple like in February, so he's still a little one. So we're just kind of taking this year off, letting the other friends get to it. But yeah, I mean, Halloween parties are like kind of my thing. I love doing that. Like I always get real like build my expectations up and everything where I'm like, I'm going to put my projector out. I'm going to do this. We're going to screen horror movies all year long. And I just feel like every year it rains when I do that. Cause like the last 2 years I tried to do it, it rained. So I didn't do the projector. I just put them on the TV inside. But it is one of those things where it's like, I always love a good Halloween party. I think it's kind of quintessential, especially as you get older and everything. Cause it's just like, but again, the other thing that I really love is going to my mother-in-law's neighborhood and just passing out candy. I think like that is like kind of a one of those like traditions where it's like as you get older and stuff like that, like you can go and buy your own candy or whatever, but and just do that for yourself. But like then kind of being able to experience that and just like give back to the little kids who are actually like trick or treating for the first time or the 10th time or whatever. It's just like it is kind of what I think gives that magical spirit to all of this season, where it's just like you can really see like this is what it used to be all about, just going out and getting candy and having a good time dressing up and everything. And yeah, those would be probably my two big if we're not discussing movies, like kind of Halloween attributes, things I like to do. And Luke, what would you say about yours?
Oh man, mine's got to be probably be in its most basic form. It is just going to get pumpkins. Like, I mean, I think the beauty about like living in Akron is, you know, you're in the city and then you drive 10, 15 minutes and you're just in a rural area with farms and everything, and it really feels like, you know, you're not just going to a supermarket to get a pumpkin, you're going out, you're experiencing it. And I remember being a kid in school, you know, in first grade, and they would let you go out and you get to pick a little pumpkin, you know, and obviously they say don't pick a pumpkin that you can't carry. And me being just a little kid, you get the biggest pumpkin you can, and then it turns out, hey, I can't carry it, so I got to go get my mom to come grab it. So it's like that type of stuff, it sits with you. So it's like, for me, it's not officially Halloween until you go get pumpkins, you know. So it's like just going out there. I don't want to you know, I don't want to get out of the car and just go grab a pumpkin and that's the end of it. You know, it's like you want to sit there and you want to take it all in. Especially, there's nothing like it. I love going early in the morning when it's still chilly out and you have to put a hoodie on. And it's like the place I usually go to, you know, they sell their own maple syrup and all that stuff. So it's like, you know, you grab everything you can because you just want to live in that moment. You know, once November 1st hits and you have to wait a full year again, it's like you want to have as many remnants as you can of the Halloween season. So I just gotta say, going to get pumpkins, there's nothing like it. It's one of those things where no matter how many times you do it, what year it is, I think each time you go get one is always special.
Oh yeah, I love that. Those are good answers, guys. Some weird ones for me too that I kind of want to throw on here are whenever you get, like, I'm a big Oreo guy. I love Oreos. So whenever the orange Halloween Oreos come in, that's another like kind of kicker for me where I'm just like, okay, we're getting into spooky season. It's happening. Like, I always grab a pack of those. I have one upstairs right now that I've been munching through the last couple weeks, and it's just like, I don't know why. I love that. But if I had to pick another one, it would just be like bonfires, I think, are like the best. Like, a summer bonfire is fun, but like I feel like when we hit those Ohio Octobers where it's just like it's nice and cool out, but it's not like frigid, and you can just sit around a fire with friends and stuff like that and talk, like that is really, I think, what cements that fall feeling for me. So it's like, yeah, I think those are all really great answers, and I think that this is just something fun that I kind of wanted to do, where I was just like, I wanted to get everybody's opinion on what they like to do for Halloween and just like what gets you into the spirit. I mean, we're just now starting with it's like, as we're recording this, it's the 3rd. So I mean, like, yeah, it's gonna be a wild month, but I think that's probably gonna wrap us up here for that. So thank you again, Alina, for coming on. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation, or would you anything that you'd like to let the folks on our channel know where to find you?
So I do have a question for you guys as we're talking about Halloween and just how fun it is as all horror fans here that we what's can't think of the right word, but wax nostalgic for spooky season and Halloween season and the Halloween spirit, just like normies would do for Christmas. We're like, oh, but the glint of glee in a children's eye, and it's all great. I love it. But as we're talking about that, candy corn, yes or no?
Oh, personally, for me, that's a no. I'm not a candy corn person.
For me, I'm vegan, so I can't have it now. But prior, I could eat my weight in candy corn.
Yeah, it was always just I don't know. It was always something that, like, I think really put me off, but my little sister absolutely adores candy corn. So like whenever I get her some kind of like treat or something for Halloween, because like you said, the Christmas comparison is absolutely perfect, because I love to get people like little gifts and stuff like that around this time of year. Because like my wife and I always say, like, this is our Christmas. Like, we're not so big in it. Like, we are going to be this year because we have the little one now, but like this is our Christmas where we just go all out for it. So it's just like, I always would get her candy corn or something like that. And, I get like my wife, I'll go and just make her like a little, I saw it. It was like an internet trend from a couple years ago where people were getting boo baskets. So I go and do that every year for her too. Like, that's always a fun little tradition where it's like, I just go grab a basket, go to the costume aisle or candy aisle, and just fill up on all of her favorites.
And for the candy corn question, so my sister's a year older than me, and so we'd go trick-or-treating naturally together. She loathed candy corn, so that's always a thing people would give out. And I absolutely loved it, so I would always take hers. As soon as we would get home with our bags, we dump them out and we trade. There are certain things she likes, certain things I like, so we kind of make a little trade. So I'd end up with all the candy corn, and I would just eat that like all through the night until I was absolutely sick. So I'm a huge candy corn fan up till October 31st, and then I'm so sick on it November 1st. I can't see it until next Halloween season.
Oh, I love that. But yeah, no, that's a great question. That's one of those things, like, I always forget about candy corn now as like an adult, like where it was such a big thing growing up, because you'd always have it every year, like he said. But like, other than when I get it for my sister, like I always tend to forget about it. And then you start seeing it popping up in stores, and I'm just like, wow, that is something kind of nostalgic that I kind of, it really starts to also trigger that feeling of just like what time of year it is and stuff. So thank you for that. But yeah, where can people find you there, Alina? Like, what's your main hub there?
I'm most active on Instagram at Akron Horror Hounds, and then also on Facebook, at Twitter at AK Horror Hounds, because Akron Horror Hounds was too long. We also have our very own subreddit, r/Akron Horror Hounds. And if you're not into traditional social media, we're also on meetup.com, which is just for making friends, finding groups and clubs to go do things with. And we now have a rather active Facebook group, and it's called Akron Horror Hounds discussion group. And it is great because it's filled with other, I call them Akronite Deadites, a whole bunch of people just like us who live here, who will share recommendations, suggestions, ask for suggestions, an occasional meme. So if you want to make friends with people who like the same things you do and live in the same town you do, look us up.
Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to wrap us up here. So thank you again, Alina, and check her out at all the places she just mentioned. And that's going to end the interview portion. And thank you again. So, alrighty.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. Well, thank you again, Alina, for coming on and talking to us. That was a wonderful conversation. Definitely
very fun
talking about all these classic horror flicks, all the good stuff where we got our start with all this crazy stuff that we're obsessed with. And also the little candy corn debate was a good bit of fun. So,
oh man, very divisive conversation, Dylan.
I know I was the odd one out there where I'm not much of a candy corn person.
Ridiculous.
But hey, I'm sorry.
You're
okay,
you're off the podcast.
Whatever, dude. You know what? You can't even do this without me, okay? Because I am the face of this brand. Don't you ever forget it.
Yeah, look at you, Dylan. When I think horror, I think Dylan.
Okay. Now you're just being a jerk. But no, anyway, guys, yeah, that was a fun conversation. I had a good time with that. Definitely check her out at all the stuff that she pimped out there for us, where it's just like, the Akron Horror Hounds Facebook, Instagram, all those good places where you can kind of just meet up, keep up with the discussion. And like we said, whether you're from Akron or not, if you're just looking for a good horror community to talk movies and upcoming news and everything, Horror Hounds is great. So definitely hop in there. Other than that, we're in the midst of Splatterthon, like we said at the top. So keep up with us on this channel and see all the good stuff that we're posting. We've been posting content like crazy, and we got a lot more to come. So you got that. And of course, the giveaway that's going on right now. So follow the link in the description to that, and you'll be able to enter for a chance to win the Splattercast mug or Splatterthon mug, as well as a copy of the Black Phone on Blu-ray. So that's all fun
naughty
there.
Boy.
Absolutely. Alrighty, but other than that, if you guys do want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at SplattercastPod, as well as Instagram and TikTok, where you can keep up with all the latest reactions, news, all the good stuff and conversations. We like to keep going there. And if you feel that we deserve it and you like the content we're producing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are still actively growing and hoping to spread our reach and our roots deeper into this horror community. And
our influence. It's like they live.
Yes, very much like they live. But I guess that's going to wrap it up for me. Luke, you got anything for him?
No, not really. I mean, I think you pretty much covered it all. I do want to mention I did like her pick of Saw, though.
Mhm.
It's like one of those things you don't really think about it, but since they were released during Halloween, it's like one of those seasonal things where once it turns fall, you don't know you need to see Saw, but then once you saw Saw, you're like, I did need to see it.
I did need to see Saw. I see what you did there, you bastard.
No, I thought it was a really good pick. I'm
No,
gonna go watch Saw now, actually.
there
At
you
least the
go.
first one.
There you go. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you for watching. And as always, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.